Another thing that I get and understand, but I don't exactly agree with. Now, even though they're not always demons, but I always call them demons, but like in your real world where you know who they are, what they are, like around the bat of what society is and what you're getting and dealing with, and you know what, like, certain psychological issues are, because I'm just gonna delete what you think is another map because I'm not gonna play a certain game with you. But what I will say is that you're that type of dude that likes to hold his ground to the point where people will like escort you out of a club or some public area and then get rid of you. So somewhere along the lines, the rules have to make sense. So when you're escorted out of these places and you're getting high off of the fact that, like, well, you belong to reality, you belong to the real world, no one can take that away from you. What you know is going on in Chi and in reality is all real things that everybody's going through. And you know something about the world that nobody else knows about the goddamn world is that they're all overlapping. So you don't talk to each other like that in slavery. So anyway, beyond the fact that that's simply true and not true, or you prefer life a certain way and like a lot of people want to agree with you, or you know that like demons and all the wrong people are running the world anyway, so you decide to do what you like to do and you like your lifestyle a certain way. Some of these things true, some of these aren't, and you act like they can't deny you the reality from what they want in their head, and their wants and their needs don't match up. All of this is somewhat true and still disgusting and still abidable by the fact that, like, we're not interested in your lifestyle. No one really is. So, you go live and stuff. But then by the end of it, the real truth of the matter is, what about the other guy who starts to listen to those demons and fight and do the things they tell him to? Because if it makes that much sense in their head, that mental slavery makes that much sense, then it must be the encompassing reality about why their hustles don't work, or it gets up to a certain standard where everyone's mentally different. So the clash that you're having with them should equal reality if you're not thinking logically. So you started going with the flow, and you started looking crazy, or you started believing in their bullshit. Right? Now there's that illogic where what they've done to you is bred you into thinking, or psychologically malformed you or manipulated you into thinking that if you act like what's in their head, the reality becomes sustainably real. What they're actually doing is you're making you a soldier to take their bullshit. So when you take their hit, they hope that it extinguishes what their sin looks like, because it was someone else that was guilty in a non-visible plane of the universe, which is what they think. They're used to getting away with their spoiled bullshit. But the other person I can understand, because it's like, what distinguishes reality? And this is like reality, and then the sub-reality is what you hear in your head and it's wrong, or they're trying to convince you otherwise, then they're proof to the world by rebelling into what they think the world actually is, and what the world actually is what you wanted from the clash in reality, or what you're trying to prove in your own arrogance that you know better. So, in the end, they just view you as one of those people that are minus out as a demon, and they've tricked you or manipulated you. No and yes and yes and no. So could you understand? I never went through this. I'm just explaining to you what is the courtesy of what you should understand. And I have gone through some things like that, but I've gone through it in a different way that's more like, money is not greed because greed isn't money. What you do to money is so disgusting that it isn't actually greed. You want us to want money, but success is illegal. So, you get the idea that we belong to reality. So what you hold so prized from reality is all things that we all have the right to have or possess in life. Normal, natural things, food, water, the normal benefits. You invented money, and you seem to be so arrogant about it that no one else is allowed to have it. Well, it's not just money. We're actually talking about something else. But when it comes down to it, your greed on money looks bad enough that we wouldn't need to have to talk about the other thing that you're worse and greedy about, like life standards. So anyways, we went back to, well, I'm not the one brainwashing or manipulating, but we went back to brainwashing, manipulating, and we get back to a real high conclusion here. The real conclusion of all this is that Don't alienate yourself out into being a target for them because they're using you as an excuse for what they actually did. Probably because you noticed or knew that they were fucking wrong for it. They stand out as demons and you fucking know it. You don't owe them anything, I don't owe them anything. Now, the more you act like that, there is a way to expose them and have them tailgate you, but some of them are two-faced, some of them are. Some of them just like to penalty you out and then, like, use you as a sacrificial object in order to extinguish what people had noticed about them inadvertently. So I hope you get that, and I hope you understand that ideal, because that's how other demons that were good demons go down in what was supposed to be the greater fight for why poor people don't make money, what's wrong with the actual industry, why some high official or elitist people are actually snobs, and why some of them aren't and are just like hardworking people that get confused with what their ambition, their arrogance, their drive, or their overall status is supposed to be. They get confused with those people. So they don't know that that's not really self-confidence or their hard work or their motivation paying off in what they believe in themselves and their accomplishments. They are literally run by demons and they just don't know it. So those two tactics that are mature and recognizable to us aren't recognizable to anybody else. So even if you're old-fashioned and you're like, no, I'm not leaving the store, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm dressed well and I'm not, like a fucking punk-ass kid. We understood. Everyone else understood. What they didn't understand is that you're trying to expose those people who are mentally playing incorrectly with life. And I understand. Hypnox understands. But a lot of other people don't. So don't get caught up that fucking way. And the other markers that are supposed to be left for you to realize that the salvation is somewhere else is something that I do. But even when the world is still tricky with my opinion, I make it very clear that these people are demons. And I'm not talking about official blood demons. I'm talking like born from real hell and paradise and all that bullshit. Now, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they are literally the affirmation of everything wrong with what happened with them in history. And they take advantage of that, and they don't live in a fantasy land. And you can see how they argue so much that no one really knows what they're talking about. So you go back to your alcohol, you have a drink, and you think fucking and drinking works. Why it doesn't? I don't know, but we'll talk about that on another episode. So back to my point. For basic defense for you all that are already caught up in that I had to just rat on you to tell you the better, greater truth, or to get you to feel or realize that what Hypnox does isn't something you should imitate or put up to standard, because it's not that they want me dead. They just want me to stop, or they want me to like put it up to a point that's flaggable and safe. But I never had that problem, so they never noticed it. Or they got up to a certain point where what they did notice was like, oh, he wants it neutral before he duels us. Yep, you exactly right. I hate your guts. But when it comes to like all the other bullshit, doesn't everybody want a fair duel? So, it gets up to the fucking point where like where I flagged them at, just for all of you to have a comprehension, they're not perfect either, and that they're misled by life. So the ignorance is something that I'm not really fighting. I'm not here to like beat up innocent people who aren't aware of what's going on. They're elite, high-issued garbage and trash, and they ordered their flunkies in order to be stupid, and their flunkies don't even know. Whenever they figure it out, they apologize to me and they go their right way. And then they start to realize, like, every time we turn our back on this guy, he starts making the world a fucking nemesis for everything right people do, innocent people do, who don't even realize why they're, like, not greedy, but they're, like, working for a system that's greedy. And every time that they get a joyful moment provided by the system, they are trained. And by that time, they don't even know why, like, we're supposed to be greedy because those are the only things that we have as opportunities to be happy. No, you're supposed to be naturally happy, not what they trained you to be happy. Now go back and think about it. You were happy you bought some gum and some candy at the fucking store or whatever, you were happy. Now all the other stuff that they trained you to, like, buy this other candy bar because this candy bar doesn't do this stuff to demons. What are you talking about? It's demon-friendly candy bar. What if it's the opposite way in the world? So even if everything is vegan and some guy is selling it to you, wouldn't you take advantage of selling something as a good product for your own reputation? So you're a sellout. Or you bought that candy bar because you thought it was healthy for everybody. So you did that as a good standard. But after a while, did you check the company? It's stuff like that, and you don't even realize that in the hint that I'm giving you, the person that owned the other company is betraying all of us and everything that we consciously believe, and you're buying the candy bar. It has nothing to do with being vegan. It has nothing to do with how they produced the candy bar and that it did or didn't hurt animals for a short period of time while they were testing the thing. And that was years ago, by the way. That was more than 20 or 30 years ago. And that was the last reported case was probably more than almost a millennium, almost a decade or something, or no, almost put it this way, it's been more than a few lifetimes since we've had to deal with that issue. So anyway, back to or maybe 1.5 lifetime. So anyway, let's get back to the fucking real point. If this is not a big enough standard warning for you, be careful, because Hypnox can't just turn his back, figure out what you're saying, and then slap you for wasting his time. Because what you actually did to all of us and Hypnox is waste. Because even if we knew better, you wasted our time to be a spoiled little brat, so we have to explain why you're two-faced, and the world doesn't really work that way with Hypnox. So if you ever get jealous of Hypnox, or why you act like a little bitch, or all that bullshit, you're literally throwing a temper tantrum for a demon, or for why your tactic isn't understood for upsetting a demon, or the devil, or some weird thing. I don't even blame the devil that much, because he's already resolved. All of them are technically already resolved. You're just like a spoiled brat taking advantage of something. And why are your good times just to mess up what is done rightfully decent in the world? So I don't know. So sometimes I'm not sure what the hell their standard issue belief would be. But even though I have to paint this somewhat seeming like a fantasy land, I don't make any qualms about it, because later on when certain things hit the surface and you start getting back different bone results and different like anatomy results, not literally, but in the fact that like you start looking at things in a different perspective and you start realizing, wow, people were different back in the day, back in the 2.5 revolutionary cycle. So anyway, so what if the world only spun around 2 or 3 times, but it spins really slowly, but it's only noticeable to the fact that we're so small and it's so big, but it's not so noticeable because we're in doubt of knowing how much it's spinning, one or the other. And so that's probably more than intuition. So anyways, back to the very big other point. If you recognize any of these things, after a while, I'm not sure why you have to continue that tactic, or why I'm not here to change old men and respect them for getting us so far. But I will not be going back to those different issues outside of some mild kindness to remind you how much more information there is to keep you well than to you have to take so much risk dealing with all of us. So anyway, those aren't my enemies or anything. Those are just people I noticed that weren't exactly wrong, but they're actually accidentally flagging them in the name of their own righteousness with the bad cause of what the other people did by accident completely, or almost being bullheaded enough where they're fighting him and not really giving him a full-fledged point, but it's still enough for him to capitalize on you or to get you out of the way. And that's how many soldiers I've lost in the Great War of, you know what, I wish I could say the real word, but in what we know is a better world for what we think and consider life to be humane for. So anyway, I would have loved to say the other thing, like for the big man upstairs, but let's just not do that, because they're already confused enough that they don't even know that they're working for evil people. So we get back to the motherfucking point, and it's not the money that makes them evil, really. It's not that. I'm not like a money hater or a success hater. I'm not one of those people. It's one of those things where it's like the clarity that you're given on what life actually does to support you and keep you happy is coming from someone who's evil and wants to keep it a certain way so that he can hide his evil ass. Now, even when it's easy for us to notice, and like on the criminal side of things, it's a lot easier for us to notice, because it's like, why the fuck do you take so many double standards for all the things we go through? And then you start to realize that this dude's deal is that he's not a leader. He's actually just like protecting his ass from everything, and then like kind of like a evil tyrant towards what the real regards are. So behind all that, a spoiled bitch doesn't even begin to describe what we're actually dealing with. Now, it's not just criminals fighting this, but those are the people that are only like free-handed strong enough and do give a shit and do get up off their lazy ass and slap that guy and tell him he's fucking wrong. And that's what we're counted on for. Not really. We know what a real fight is and what we're dealing with. We don't owe no fucking dude to bully us like that or to undermine us to the point where life is actually like this. And I'm not talking about my ghetto life. I'm talking about like life is actually like that. If you start to gain the perception of like not hiding your shame and moving forward and erasing it and then filling it with all this other paradise, like you could see straight and actually collect your money. So why does the world have so much bad luck? That's not bad luck. That's some shit that you put off that was like just kind of like shitty that he just kept doing in his free time to have enough like bullshit and fucked up bullshit sitting around waiting for you for when you discover how actually evil and disgusting the person is. The type, anyway. And in a lot of ways, why do I tell you all this shit? Why is it scary that sometimes this psychopath makes sense? I'm giving you every free way I possibly can, including the fact that I have to say that I am, because there's so many different places where you're not going to be able to see what fate actually is until we're done with this shit job. And then you realize, see, told you, that's what that guy was doing. And you don't understand it until we slap him out of the fucking sky. We're not talking about our God. We're not even talking about other opposing gods. We're talking about, because those are all relevant factors of like how they grow up to realize what's really relevant to do good for life. All of them are doing good for life. The people that you'll understand aren't religious at all. Now, when that they're demons and that they're evil, when you start to understand what their concept of survival is and what their concept of manipulation is and messing with all of us, you will realize where the next like motherfucking thing is. And once you see what a motherfucker is, you'll start to realize these two motherfuckers had this deal on us the whole fucking time and been using all of our faith and wisdom and things that we love in life, including our fantasies, against us to hide their bullshit, to keep the world unlucky and shitty. Like, somebody has to go out of their fucking way, you know. You don't just always get a lot of bad fucking luck. A lot of people go out of the way, including things you never believed. Like, in one dimension, you were driving your car. In another dimension, where your spittle bracket to your like, you know, to your catalytic converter to your exhaust all kind of like broke off in some weird way. And it's like, isn't that kind of impossible? I mean, well, yeah, it's not even real logic. I don't know, I just pull it out of my ass. But when it comes to like an exhaust system, like having too much stress on it while you're driving, you didn't fix the car that way. Why would it have that kind of an issue? That car is built to go for a really long time. So you start to realize the extra stress that's posed upon your life isn't just because he felt some type of way about you. What if I told you the truth? That's actually true. It's because he felt some type of way about you. Now, we're not talking about racism. We're talking about that stupid fucking evil monster person felt that way about you. Now, the spiritual imposition that's on him is that if he had a lot of like non-soldiers laying around or bad luck or energy or karma, and he used that incorrectly on all of us, it would seem as bad as the world actually is. That's why you can blame him for a lot, because it's actually true that like, why does this guy hate the world for something he's guilty for? So he's just covering his ass and then pretending to be a better snobby person than all of us and exposing everything that he does in order to be a better person than all of us or to keep the world in dominance. And no one ever fucking noticed. Until you start realizing, you start calling him on some shit and the motherfucker starts changing into something else. And you start to realize after a while, like, this guy really is that fucking crazy. And why is it that you like to have somebody to blame and they like to have somebody to blame for every fucking mistake? And then after a while, there's no mistakes, and you just start getting nervous, like, who's going to have the mistake if the leader isn't having the mistake, or the guy that's, like, helping us out doesn't have a mistake? What kind of shit is that? That's why you would backstab me? That's why I'm very careful with your dumb, crazy asses. The only thing I said is that I noticed that they're evil, and I know how to prove that. So, like, but when you realize it and it all gets to a certain surface, it's like, survival isn't good enough for us to call this what you think this game is that you're playing with people. And it's not really about money and how they try to make us greedy. Because, like, we know our way around that. Like, we just stop giving a shit about money. Or we find something else to do for success. And we don't call success the same things, and we never cared. But when it comes down to, like, the negotiations for a better future for us and children, but mostly for ourselves to know, because, like, not all of us are with children. So, like, you know, for the future to really result into something, we started to realize we can't have all these things, and it's almost being teased to us, and there's only a few places where we can get the new accepted energy sources, the new accepted cars, the new accepted conclusions for things that are supposed to be appropriate. All of those things up to a new, better standard, and it still would be better for the world. And we just won't do it. And then we start looking at all of our single soldiers. We're like, we're not the lazy ones. We're intuitive and technical too. And pussy isn't blinding us. So we know to go do these things. Then we started to see all the like red tape and the bureaucracy. And we realized that, like, I'm talking about down to the mechanic level, not like the normal standard red tape and bureaucracy. We're talking about the bullshit of like, no, I'm not going to make that car because they don't want that car to float on water. So it won't be the Jesus Mobile. They don't want a Jesus Mobile. We've been asking for a Jesus Mobile for more than almost like 60 to 200 something years. We've been asking for a Jesus Mobile. So you shut the fuck up. We're going to get our Jesus Mobile. You know what I mean? Right. But then let's get back to the overall gloriful note about this so you don't have to feel depressed or like you didn't miss anything. No one's stupid. It really is that blinding, disgusting. And when I go up there and Hypnox slaps that fucking brainwashing stick out of his fucking hand, you're going to be so happy that it actually changes. Because it's in the way of everything. You have no fucking idea. You ever just sit there and be like, why are you demonizing him? Why are you so hard on some people? Let me tell you the truth. As soon as I finish explaining all this bullshit, you're going to realize, oh my God, you're the reason we can't have renewable energy sources. You're the fucking reason why you're like, all the politics are wrong and we have to lie to each other every day and argue for the better opinion because you're a fucking demons. Oh my God, it's really that sickening? Yes. The truth is yes. Like, as soon as we're done with that, we can go back to a real fantasy world where, like, it costs $5 to build a whole stage unit to make a new Shakespeare play in the center of town. We can't do that now because businesses and what they're arguing about are in the way. So we can't just build a fucking new concert. We have to have land and territory agreements and why the other companies are arguing with each other about, no, Pepsi won't let you do that, or no, it won't be Pepsi, or Coca-Cola won't let you do that, or whatever. It won't be that way because that's not what actually is going on. They like to sponsor those things, but whatever, anyway. Well, but the point is that all of those things start arguing and no one knows why. All of them start arguing. So which one's better, Coca-Cola or Pepsi? I don't know right now. So anyway, let's get back to the fucking point. All of those things start arguing and you start to delusionalize into the fact that, like, well, wouldn't it be better to have better fun and products? You're right, but who is to blame doesn't occur to you about quiet people like Hypnox. Why isn't Hypnox upfront about this? Literally, he is all of you wearing a mask, or most of society believes a certain way, and I can't tell you any different. So all the secrets I'm giving you are like, you wish I would give up. This is the beginning of the future of why you don't have a bunch of stuff that you deserve, earned, want, and have a better world. What the fuck, like, and let me tell you, what the fuck is life when you know you could work 3 to 4 hours a day, please everything in the whole fucking world and universe, and still have enough time to be with your family, your kids, your vacation, your money, and they can pay you more, and you deserve more, so that you can actually go live. See, this place, this earth, this land shit wasn't built so that everybody has to be a consumer robot to the point where they don't understand why they're working double shifts and not really seeing a life and working hard for a life that doesn't exist. It somewhat does, but not to the point. Like, put it this way. Less than 15% of people in the world, you know what, less than 3% sometimes, would all have to work that hard on some companies to keep them up to speed to producing products for us, you and me, to the point where they could be a little bit frustrated with us, but still have to realize that, oh wow, we like making cars. Oh, you're bigger than cars? Oh, you're bigger than sports? Oh, you're bigger than recreation? Like, you see how many places they gotta kill us, and it doesn't make any sense. For people to have less of a good fucking time in life. That just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, even when you could have robots and all this other stuff doing all of our manual labor, that's not really the goal of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you take the time to look at the etiquette, and I am a bit of a modern day Renaissance type of person, so you may wonder, like, how does he know? Like, I don't study you. I literally put all this shit together because I took the time to do so. When it comes to other people, like, why is there so much suffering involved? Nah, fuck that. I'm going to get in line and get my money. I'm going to be rich and successful. I'm not going to waste my time figuring out what's wrong with them. So I took the time to take my consumer bonus discount, save the coupons, put them off to the side, and make little notes about this. Now, even when I'm sitting there and I add it all up, none of us have to work for more than 4 or 5 hours a day. You should be on a whole vacation. You should be getting paid more than a certain amount of money. The giant air bubble, which isn't even just men's ego of like, no, we'll do it for $12 an hour, but we love our jobs. Okay, some of them are like that. But they took that as a global standard for people that should be getting paid $50 an hour minimal. And I'm talking about, like, a lot of people should be getting paid a lot of money. But they don't want to also make our money worth less than other places. So we would rather have more slavery and more value in our money. Well, you can't have one without the other. So why don't you value life more so that we all have more lives and less value in what we care about money? So he's just one of those artist people. Just ignore him. What the fuck, bruh? Live a life so that you're not so frustrated with me. Or, like, what I really meant is that, like, I want to take you on vacation too, but you're so mean and, like, want to work so hard that I don't think me and you ever going to work together. So by the end of it, you say you hate me. You can't really find a reason. I can find all the reasons in the world, but if I do, we're in an argument for no reason, and I don't need a waste of time any more than you do, but you think your time is more important. Let's get back to the solution of why I just don't like arguing with you, because it's not you that's doing this to me. You're misled, and the other guy is doing this to me. But when it comes to the greater view of things, take your vacation while you can, because I actually have some parts of my life that are exquisitely good. And those things that they try to view about my life are things that they wanted canvassed away from me or wanted up on the big picture to enjoy my life more than I do. Ultimately, what the fuck is your goal? I don't owe you. But then when it comes to the real surface of it, if you take this philosophy and you can earn a real life with all of your fantasies, all your dreams, and everything that we deserve as progressive people for technically being in the fortitude of doing our job up to a high standard that actually improves the world to what's the point? You know what the point is. So we built all of that to suffer more and to work harder. Or you're just brainwashed into working that way, or you prefer it that way. Fine, no problem. But when you're all like, get a job trying to dig up fruit for all of us and then give us free fruit and then wander around looking for more work, if you're like that, you're like that. But if you're not, don't be frustrated with the rest of the people who just didn't, like, you know, go and freshly pick food for us that day. Or grow any food for us that day. Because we're going to need more farmers than what your bullshit is about work ethic. Like, either you want some success, and that's okay too. Because there'll always be some paintings for, like, why you earned something and so on and so forth. You know, like real earning shit. We all like to earn. We just create our own systems for that. If we're left without nothing but our own hard work. And have to learn for ourselves how we're going to actually earn a living, or instead of, like, take a living or find a living. The big problem is, like, find a living. What the fuck? Right. Yeah, because then it's like, you know, you're living off of nothing, or like what they might have left, which is even worse. So you know how they like to get ahead and backhand the world. So anyways, back to a different point. The overall conclusion is that yes, it is true. The devil really is, or demons are really all working against you, because if they get caught in all the fucking stupid shit that they've done, the world will not allow them the greater superficial success. Not literally, but they think that and know some things about what the punishment is, or why they're accosted, or why they don't want them in life anyways. And then we find our new job replacements and our new management. They are afraid that the new management will be nice, good, and clean, and then they get rid of them. You like Hypnox? You don't like Hypnox? Whatever. All we know is that the new management that comes in that's so nice and everyone likes and blah, blah, and everything's perfect, those people actually hate those new management. So on their way in, if we don't have no backbone, like they said, it's like, what? You know, how are we going to protect this new management? Now, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about, because I'm literally defending myself a lot, and like, you shouldn't have to worry about it. But every once in a while, I come up. Now, a lot of me's don't come up in the fucking world. Now, I'm trying to explain why to you. Now, let's sign off on some bullshit, because that's not my arrogance. Let's sign off on the fact that they probably wouldn't like the new management, because that's a sign that all of them are going down the fucking drain for something they know they did wrong, or they're affirmatively holding all this to a point where all they want to do is argue with each other and not let anyone have their standard or a greater standard because they're in charge of something. So we got to get rid of them the polite way, or you know, technically the hard way by moving all of our stocks, or you know, just quitting that fucking job, or working for the other team that's actually like more proficient because they're not just sitting there juggling somebody's bullshit. You see what I'm saying? Like you don't just juggle their bullshit and then work for them. So that's how that fucking goes. You gotta let the team go. You gotta go and aspire to do something else. You can't just sit there and use people either. But when it comes down to it, it's still got to be one of those factors where, like, as soon and I'm telling you the truth, as soon as you see this, it's got to be a better word. As soon as you see this and realize what we're really talking about, you'll realize why all these things ain't happening. And then you're going to have to just kind of remove them. And I'm not talking about like, oh, the whole world can't handle it. It's literally like something like, we made a giant public mediocrity joke once together as a family, and we tried to tell you, and it's somewhere in between the bracket of 1% and 3%. And that statistic was voyeured to a point where all of society was like, what do you mean it's a rich person? It's some rich people. They're all in an agreement. They all blackmailed each other. And as soon as you get rid of all of them, you'll realize why the system works better. It's not about drug cartels. You know why they're against drug cartels now. But like, it's not about drug cartels. It's not about overall their weird ass, like, you know, territorial squabble. It's not about racism. It's literally about the fact that these groups of people love all those confusions and they use them as tools. Now, even when the government seems involved and they're not, it's really like, their confusion isn't that confusion, but they're like, if you two are arguing over drugs and it's become so resoluted to you two arguing over drugs and you're both demons and we don't even care about y'all's deal, they got rid of some drugs and we all got mad and pounded because we like party. So who fucked up our party? Those two demons. Don't blame the government, because the government's opinion is so boldly stupid and so boldly normal that what they backhand on is that we had to stop it any way that we could. Now, we're not talking about drug cartels. We're not talking about narcos. We're not talking about that bullshit. That's not what's up on auction. I don't give a shit about that. What I'm telling you is that the reason it's not the government's fault is because when it reflects back to government, those other two demons want you to blame the government so that your dumb ass fights a robot that never responds to you because it already made a choice. So you're sitting there arguing with an empty robot and there's nothing there to argue with. So that's why they prefer you to argue with the government. And if you get caught up arguing with the government and the government wants to retaliate, that's your ass. Or like they collect you with a bunch of machines, or it's just a bunch of like idle, like nothing fates, and they know how to block fate. Or you could be really tricky and live beyond that, but you know, let's just say the sacrifices is that we threw parties different and the drugs changed. So not all drugs are illegal. Or we used some other funner drugs in a very healthy, sane way, like it was grown on a very preservational land area that isn't caught up in all their money games, which is still a part of owning land. So like, you could be an ethical drug dealer too and realize why no one hates you. So, you know, you get back to like, oh, you sell ecstasy because all the plants that you're dealing with are healthy. You know, there's some standards to this. So like, when you're farming organic, it's not that they're giving you a hint on how business works. They are giving you a hint on how business works, but it's also, if you were following all the ethical rules for where you are in your folder kit about all those type of standards in life, it would be easier to accept you as a drug dealer because your territory's not in the way, your commercials aren't in the way, your lifestyle isn't in the way, The obligation of your money and your work and your revenue aren't in the way. It's not clogging certain parts of the country. All of those things fall into play. That, like, why is everyone such a selfish pig man to the point where, like, you couldn't, like, abide by all of those rules and not be, like, so in their face about something so that they just don't bust you? Now, why? All it takes is one of those stupid motherfuckers to have a bad opinion of you, and then all the rest of them want to continue the argument on you, even if you were an ethical, good drug dealer. So that's all. But then you have legalization of weed now, and still these places have some political problems, a little bit, but all it takes is for them to decide that there's an argument there. And you know how they like to argue and debate. So back to the real fucking point. Let's get back to the real point. After all of that bullshit, do you know that what's thrown out of the window, what really matters and what really doesn't matter? All it was those few little fucking demons. Now, there's more than two, but you need two to have some fucking kind of argument, and that's just to explain that the government's part of it is so robotic that when you start to see that they busted them for a stupid reason that we're not going to mention on this side of the fucking team, or that they busted them so robotically that you're arguing with the wrong person. So I don't even argue with the government anymore. And even when I'm doing stuff, I treat a country like it's a country, and I do patriotically love my country. So when it comes down to, like, my country tried to spank me, I take my spanking like a big boy, and then I figure out who the fuck did that to me, because I know the country works like a robot. They don't even care. They don't even want to bust up our party. Like when we were having a good time, as long as no one got hurt and there was nothing bad there, duh, don't you think we want the same thing? Nobody likes hearing that, and no one wants to know what Hypnox is really like. Because you want to talk about authoritarian. We hear that you did that to us. You fucked up our reputation. Notice how no one likes hearing that kind of a phrase. You fucked up our reputation? Does everyone else know what happens when you fucked up our reputation? So don't worry about it. Trust me. Everybody else loves and respects each other. It's not likely to happen every once in a while. Like what, every 20 or 40 years something stupid like that happens, then no one is owed. You know what I'm saying? So that's not how that goes. And very rarely, and we're all friends and everybody does good things. The other people that you don't notice, that sometimes they just don't notice because they're all working hard to provide you a better life, better products, or something that you can live up to the standard. They tried to ignore that to make a better future. Every once in a while, or every few decades or so, a Hypnox come along and has to remind you that, like, if I don't, like, you know, throw away the trash, it piles up. So, sorry, but I don't harass people or even explain to them what I'm doing. But your fucking curiosity is so grotesque that I explain some of this so that you can go your own way, or realize that there's no necessity to have you all arguing on my behalf for me, or knowing why, or when you realize why, what reflects back to me is so casual that you think that I'm not taking enough hits or that I'm spoiled. Well, I'm sorry to explain this to you credentially, but what I really wanted you to understand was that all of these things, like your weird sicko revenge that I never talk about, could be figured out in some mechanical way. So I'm not sure why everyone has to feel this way. You understand? Because I'm not even really that mad at them. I want them out of the fucking way so that you can focus. Because I want a better party. Now, when all the, like, I'm one of those type of people who are like, if we finish doing this work for 3 or 4 days, we'll be able to have a nice 2-day party where there's, like, nothing but a cool party, and there won't be anything drawing me away from my drinks or messing up anything, and I'll have, like, a cool straight party where I don't have to worry about anything. If I do the other party where I like I'm working for 2 hours, taking a fucking drink, and then I'm working another 2 hours, and then it's just fucking annoying. I don't feel like I partied. I feel like the whole entire time I did something else. So let's get this out of the way. Let's get some renewable energy sources. Let's get some new vehicles that are supposed to look like 2525. Let's get some flying cars in there. Let's do all this stuff. But you know what's really weird? Everybody else is like, when are we going to Mars and all this? We're still going to Mars. But you know what the real problem is? The totality of it all? That stupid, evil motherfucker is actually in our way. And we're all focused on doing something better. And all it takes is one of those nice people to just say, hey, yo, bro, hey. He walks right out of the crowd. His name is Hypnox. And he goes over there, and he's just like, hey, yo, bro, stop bothering all of us. Because you're keeping us from going the right direction. All of them are actually doing appropriate, and they're not even being held back. But you know what the problem is? Everybody else who doesn't want to finally hit the button on the decision, it's because they're afraid to show the shame that they have sympathy for you. You're forcing them to be hard on you because they know that they would damn near have to delete you in order to get you to stop behaving like a fucking demon. And I'm talking about like taking advantage of all the law and reality in life that makes this place actually good and appropriate. It's still, for right now, I can see how it doesn't make exact sense, but to all of us, it's like all the products and everything that we like are better, but we can't make the leaps and bounds on even our profits to change everything in the world. And we know we can, and we have enough money, resources, and everything, so what's in the way? Hypnox is telling you. The other demon is afraid that once his politics are free, and they start to realize all the politics are free, and they start to realize why they're not buying into it anymore. Like, why would we lose gas? Because gas is an ignitable factor to what we all use for resources for security. Well, we don't need a security demon anymore, so we can change. So we're afraid to change because we might lose some secure reinforcements. So we made that change. So that's out of the way too. So you can't use that as an excuse anymore. We buried all that stuff. We got rid of it. So we're on to a new world. But you still had a chance to change. All of our politics won't change because we still have to invest in a market of a bunch of different types of people who are all right and good for the world and above standard, but they are all in agreement and in collusion to where they have to dissect their opinion for the survival of their history, their heritage, and who they are as a people. Not against them. They're not even in an argument. They're in a financial argument with somebody else who believes that if I can keep them arguing, we all have more money. See, Hypnox is not arguing. Hypnox hates arguing, wants to have some fun. So he's in the way of the fun because he makes less money when everyone's legitimately having a normal cabaret or a normal party, which means that the whole cabin is going around the whole place and we're saying hey and hallelujah and grabbing some fruit, cake, and water and some slight wine. We didn't even need that much alcohol, and that's how it was. But even when we can get drugs and alcohol, all this stuff, and we still want more. I'm not voting less alcohol and drugs. I'm voting we all have some self-control. It's the other guy. And I am blaming him because he's the only one that wants us delusional enough to steal our wallet while we're asleep or to convince us that the devil is real about him, so that we're all scared of the devil and then have to act out on what's actually going on, and we're all too shameless to tell him the truth. So you can't have it both ways. So no one's ashamed because they don't know. So let's get back to the fucking point. The real point is that we're not wrong as people. Everyone else knows that there is a problem, and sooner or later we gotta nip it in the fucking butt. Because you're in the way, and more importantly, you're in the way of renewable resources and possibly vegan or new different types of food that are vegetarian and taste just as good as why we wouldn't be taking a loss. And don't you think it would be nice to have a vegan meal that's a perfectly good meal by itself and a normal meal with some meat in it? But the side vegetarian meal that we're using is a whole meal there, and we're still going to add that and have two meals, and the vegan meal is almost just as delicious. Fuck yeah. But why can't we do stuff like that? They are afraid of a vegan meal. Because if you don't butcher that many people, how are they not going to be afraid of the oppression that I leave on them about we never get revenge because we wanted him out of the way, or we wanted him jailed, or we wanted him extorted or extraditioned out of the country? And we're not talking about just one person. We're talking about a few people. But when it comes back to it, nobody really understands that because they prefer to be like, what if it was you? I don't make those kind of mistakes, and we're all perfect. See, you have to understand something. Add the world, they want all this stuff to be better because they know that they've earned it, and they don't know anything else except for we worked hard. That's all they know. Can't you help them? You have to save their life. You know why? Because they can't think outside of that. They work like, dude, sometimes you don't really understand sweet, soft, sensitive people. These people told you, all I know how to do is work on cars, man. Right? Why are you telling me all this? Dude, I only know how to make this type of place. Why are you telling me all this? I only know how to clean up my office, buddy. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, well, I only know how to make standard commercials. We don't even make messed up commercials, buddy. I don't know what you're talking about. the way that we build traffic and highway roads requires a lot of construction, and we don't know what you're talking about. All of these different things that they do to maintain the motherfucking world. And they're only up to a certain standard because they're actually innocent. They're actually sweet people. So the roads can't just be built for electric cars to run that way. So we can't just make the cars smoother because it helps out the electric battery. But eventually we probably would if there was a financial way to develop that. But there actually is, and everyone knows that. But that's not really the problem with their argument or what they said for us for positivity to give us a chance to fight for the future. Now, that's all fine and good, and we're not arguing with them. But they were being simple with us. But not only that, you know what their sacrifice in life actually was? It was actually all of those things. They were very honest with you. They told you that they can only go so far, and they're hardworking, normal class people. So every once in a while, you're an artist, and it's your fucking responsibility to go over there and shake them and be like, dude, the other fucking car looks so cool that everybody else thinks that the electric car might work for the next few years. They even made an electric muscle car that looks like it might be able to like distinguish what they have done with the revolution of muscle cars. So it might be an electric muscle car that could be competent to what they wanted for the next 20 years. Yeah, but we can't put a windmill on the fucking car or anything yet and then get it to be like a space interval car that can run off of its own revolution. All right, we'll work on that. Thank you for the idea. These are all things that are possible. But you know what's really impossible? The rest of the invisible ceiling, the invisible hand of the market, it's all coming from somewhere. It's not just your negative energy and your bad opinions. You know what it really fucking is? The whole world has to go and admit that we don't want to build a better world because the other guy won't shut the fuck up while all these positive people are doing things. And we don't think that they're snobs. We literally can't help them because they only are those type of people, and we don't want to change them. So we have to go and find this guy for ourselves and throw him out of the country. These few people, this 3%, this 4 or 5%. You like those memes where everybody's getting insulted? You're not helping us. You know what the point was? Why are you doing this? Because you're only helping out that demon. Yeah, the real truth is coming soon. You don't like the younger generation? Oh, the fuck well. You're going to have to wake up and realize what the future is. We want this shit out of the way so that we can all go take a 4-hour vacation every day and they can go back to actually living. That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. Now, you're going to have to ignore the fact that Hypnox just keeps walking around slapping some people that are clearly wrong. And you'll love me and want to agree with me, but you don't want to really be with Hypnox, and that's okay because he's a single man, doesn't give a shit about nobody. But when it comes to like, hell yeah, I love him, but you can't support him that much because your bad boyfriend can't be with you because all they really want and all they really know and all he really cares about is the fact that when we all reflect on this, he knows why you can't fully support him. Because he's not exactly the perfect picture boy image of what we need in life, not what we want in life, or these people gotta go sooner or later. Gotta go sooner or later before we can enact what is supposed to be appropriate for the world. So if you wanted to know what's in the way of the fucking future and everything that we know is gonna be a better world, it's literally the same old politics, and we're slowly getting rid of them. Now, if that doesn't happen in a few years, or Hypnox keeps getting more famous for no reason because the world's trashy, eventually I will have my say, and when that does happen, if it doesn't make sense to you, then I guess I tried, but I'll tell you the truth about it. When it does, you're going to feel a lot of hope, and you're not going to feel like fighting. Trust me, I am a very much infantile fighter type of person. All you need to do is make sure you keep your opinion sharp. Be ready. And at that last test, when they all are expecting us to say, hey, yeah, we agree with you, we're going to sell out for the next 5 years. And all of a sudden, you change your opinion to no, Hypnox is right, this is what we're going to do, you're a sicko, and let's throw away this fucking demonism shit. As soon as you do that, we're all going back to the paradise we originally built. Believe in religion it is actually a paradise. With what we're doing right now, we're acting on our greed until we think that we're going to be like having some kind of fun, but we ended up working way too hard to get something so little from the value of the actual universe. So work on the karma, work on the religion, get back to Hypnox. Because I'm telling you, as soon as it's free, you'll understand why communism isn't why the church is just like, you guys get to have free broiled chicken and juice because everybody's making so much money doing so good with their manners and their discipline in check, that it saves so much money on people's shitty behavior, because that stupid backstabbing motherfucker that they left alive and well just kept acting up and being a little bitch and fucking with us. And that's all that it is. All of us ignoring him and being positive, but his little outcomes and effect on the world of like people that are blind out on their own skirt, like living off of the value of nothing and not having their head full of all the stuff that they're supposed to have. And you can't blame them, because it's literally something else. So like all of them are being preyed on by people that have to work too hard for an ideal opinion while we're busy just making the world. And we've made all those sacrifices to make a better world. So we don't even have enough time to stop and tell them who is trying to trick them and fuck them over. Why would I do that, bro? You guys gotta stop that, because I'm not really that into. I'm gonna reiterate and elaborate on this later on so you can understand technically, point for point, how they're in the way of this and how those few percentages are. Not all of them are rich. They're just people that just don't really know that they're working demonically or whatever. So some of it, I'm not as hard on it as you think, but it still needs to be something renownedly known, or like so that people can work better, because not all of them are aware of it. And it is important, because it's not that it's not that they're horrible or that the word demons or whatever you know it to be, it's not exactly by definition. It's just that the evil or demonic people that have nothing to do with it or us and are in the way of any of this, there's just this kind of greed that is easier for them to align with and act in a false reality or false world, to why they don't proverb or work for any of us in a real way that dictates how we actually work for the world, and why it is easier for us to accept a smaller share and stake in the world for what we do is what we know is in the right direction or is going to get better eventually for everyone. Like, I mean, working 2 or 4 hours a day would be fucking heaven for everyone, and that's a part of the goal. It's just one of those things where, like, it seems too fantasy and magical, but it's supposed to be a lot better than this. It's just we're working with a lot of working class ethics and people that just like to work, and also people that have given up to a lower standard for their work that is way more valuable, that we can't find a medium other than what the devil likes to take advantage of, or so on and so forth. So all of that I'll try to explain in a different way so that you know pinpoint for pinpoint technically what they're guilty of and why they're in our fucking way. Because sometimes it's hard to believe that a few percentages are in our way. They really are in our whole way. So, you know, I'll explain that and how you and why you need the points so that you can call them on this bullshit, or that these protests or what you think is minor or major suddenly would be something that you could equate with what you actually define in your life without actually having to confront them. Because it's not really that important to confront them. It's just that I feel it necessary to as an artist, because it's a part of my responsibilities, and it's also a part of what we've been alluding to for the past 100 years or the past 60 or 70 years within my lifetime of understanding some things. It would be like they passed this all down to us for no reason, or we're supposed to know to do something with all of this extra etiquette. So by the end of it, the moral judgment, the moral compass, and why the world's so horrible, but yet you're a good person, and why do bad things happen to good people? All of that is there. They are really making the world a piece of shit. So even when you know different industries and how they work, and things are starting to come to a surface now, they just recently bust somebody who was famous for throwing orgies and shit, and it's always something that has to do with orgies. Now, my party, I don't care, I'm not exactly against orgies, but the orgies that upper class people do actually interfere with everything, because by the time that they're done blackmailing each other and doing all these things, they have to come up with a lot of laws that aren't really laws. They're just formalities in how they deal with each other in order to not express their own guilt, shame, or what they do to have a successful life. And it's all kind of encompassing to that's actually how the world runs. So the real rules and the real laws, or what you think is deemedly morally invaluable or very morally important or fucking ethically corruptible, like, or corrupted at all, isn't going to fit the standard of any of those things. That's why it's more important than the law itself or just some simple manners. So by the end of it, we get back to the point of like, well, yeah, there's some manners on not ratting on people, but the validity that we live in about not ratting on people or not consuming them for their value is that the world should sooner or later surface to the validity of things. So that means that I'll have to explain some of these things about why it is actually their fault and why they wouldn't be in the motivation of wanting to, even though in common standard it'll sound like some things you may not have, some things that you have heard already and may not have heard it put in a different way, but coming to the overall avail that yes, they're all guilty for it, like why we're mad at our own selves for profiting off of other people's raw materials, or what all these contracts are actually for that support our internationalism. Some of them good, most of them are good. Some of them actually big bad pinnacles that are a part of what they had to profiteer from by being bad people, or the only votes were evil people, and we all just worked blindly because we know we had to have a outcome that was sufficient or up to a surface enough that we could understand the suffering and the sacrifice that we made, so it seemed unusual to not have a sacrifice or suffering for all of our work. But we are in a very modern day age. Things are a lot better. There just doesn't need that. There doesn't need to be that much of a reason for sacrifice, and you start to realize that all of our suffering and sacrifice belongs to a headscape that's actually eternally against us because it's guilty of something that it did to us. And we don't know why, but we're so used to working so hard that we sacrifice it in the greater name of what we all do in a strong way to support the world, that sometimes we lose sight of what we're even working for. And these people that are voting for our suffering don't even care and would rather have us suffer and make our sacrifice than admit their own guilt. And usually we sacrifice that for leadership as tradition, to keep the boat alive and all of them well, because we trust our leadership, or we like those type of leaders. But in the end, we don't need those type of leaders. And most of the other people that are free thinking and think for themselves don't have any leaders at all. They follow the good common sense or the credo of earning what they end up having to do in order to provide what their standard for success is, or what their actual overall accomplishment goal is. So back to the previous, or the overall point. The overall point is, yes, they're in our way. Yes, it is visible. Yes, there are innocent people that are misled by this and are still generally decent people and don't involve why I think they should be excluded from the world, or a part of the are part of the not part of the world of change, which means that they can be a part of it, but hopefully when things go to a better surface, they'll know that they won't have to do that anymore, is what I would hope. But it still probably won't be that much in the way, and they can still go, kind of be assertive that those principles are part of things that govern them and make them who they are. So it's not like they have to just drop it. They can still be stronger people for what they have learned. So, it's not to change them or anything, or make people feel like their fight was for nothing because we eventually all fixed it. We're not taking fights away from people even if we fix it. We'll still probably try to understand it. At least us, at least the other people that know all those little extra secrets about why people worked hard and cried in secrecy. So anyway, let's get back to the overall point, because they wouldn't have wanted us to cry that goddamn much for them. So, or slow ourselves down from what it was. And the real point was most of them wanted them on their own to be like, well, what motherfucker, why are you putting us up to this? But anyway, let's get back to the other real point. How they are really in your way, and how you're going to need to be able to confront them for that, or you'll be able to do that without confronting them, which is still a good goal, because nobody needs that fucking mess. And that motherfucker wants to go and say his last moment to all of us when he doesn't even have the right to any more moments than what they've already hogged from all of us in life. So anyways, back to the point. I'll get more technical with that full explanation a little bit later, because you'll need to understand why, like, even if some of this is history and they're not the actual demons, they are the ones that all work so hard that their sacrifice is still not in vain, but for something greater would be the purpose. So in the lost foresight of all that, it's not like it was less than what the devil wanted at the time. So we had to make ends meet, or otherwise, if I have to use history. But I don't think I'll have to. I'll probably be able to drop hints at other places that you can go and get some real history without why I would have to demonize history in some ways for things that I don't really want the right to judge. And I could make the argument for those things, but I don't think that that's the way I think I want the future, is to criticize the past to get a better future. It's just you got to keep working at better positives. And that also causes negative history or checkpoints for the evil motherfucker to remember where he can go and alter these things and make them like shitty as usual for himself. And it's all just about having a wall of bullshit in the way of what they did wrong. And we just get tired of shaming them because we don't want to live in their shame for what they did wrong. The world shouldn't have to be ashamed of what they did as them, because we're not them. So the more they run the world, the more we have to be ashamed of how stupid they are, or they've given up and called them stupid, which is fine. But it's still one of them things where, like, we don't even have to confront them to the standard, and all we have to do is explain that, like, sooner or later, yes, we will all have a better world no matter what, but it's still better to the point where, like, some men are just going to have to give up their positions in life and just call these people up to standard, and that's what I intend to do, because my sacrifices aren't the greater picture of profit, it's the greater picture of, like, did you enjoy any of that? Why didn't you? And I know why, because we secretly have something on our mind that's like, what is this evil motherfucker doing to all of us? So anyway, I think it's gonna have to be me and Art that just like kind of gives up and breaks, because everybody else has got so much shit to lose, and I got shit to lose too, but it's more of like, the sacrifice is just gonna have to come from somebody who can avail to the deep meaning of, like, art doesn't mean that we criticize, but you're so overtly disgusting in this room that it must be excavated out so we can redesign this room. So that the northern interior meets the Art Deco